I'm going to make this very simple because most clinic owners are full of anxiety, not knowing where the next patient is coming from, and are always questioning if they've actually got the right setup in their clinic, but are super confident in their clinical skills. So the way which I've always found that you can simply get ahead from the hundreds of clinic owners that I speak with is just literally do the opposite. Let me explain. Because if most clinic owners are full of anxiety, not knowing where the next patient is coming from, all you've got to do is the opposite, which is let more people know about you. And if they're wondering whether they're following the right model, you just got to follow a proven one that's done by hundreds of clinic owners already. And then the one that the seasoned clinic owners will know, that if they think that they're really good at their clinical skills and they know everything, well, then you just got to do the opposite and go on more courses and learn more stuff. Now, I can't help you with the second two, but I can definitely help you getting rid of that anxiety to know where your next patient is coming from. Let me show you how to do that. So here's 5 things that people typically do when they launch practice, but I'm going to show you the complete opposite and how that's going to help you get more awareness and ultimately get more clients in, because that's one of the biggest anxiety inducing things which I hear from clinic owners all the time. One of the number one things which I hear is when people launch the clinic and then they think about marketing. So they think of what benches they're going to get, what colour the branding's going to be, what colour walls they're going to paint, the logo, the name of the clinic, everything apart from the thing that gives the clinic the money to pay for all this stuff. Then I end up speaking with people months, sometimes even years down the line, when they've exhausted all their referrals, or they want to get an associate on board, or they are fed up of bumbling along on the bottom because they never knew how to market the clinic. But at least they've got nice benches. So then what can we do is just do the complete opposite of that when you launch a new practice, or even getting an associate on board. So the opposite is we can get clients and then we can open up the diary. Of course, you're going to book the clients into the diary anyway, but especially for people who are opening a new clinic, one of the things which I hear all the time is they then come to me and they are 2 weeks, 4 weeks out prior to opening, and they're like, cool, we're thinking about getting some new people in for the day. Like, you should have been thinking about this months ago, but let's work with what we've got. So then let's first get clients, and then we can start worrying about if you need an extra bench, or how you're going to fill the other rooms, or what color your logo should be. Because this is the most important thing. If you don't have clients, you can't pay for anything else. But yet, when launching a practice, this is typically what a lot of people do. So they will get everything set up, and then they will start thinking about getting the clients. When I talk to a clinic owner who's thinking about launching a clinic, the thing which I always say first of all is, let's get clients, like test this out to see where it's going to be the best, easiest way which we can get clients. And then we can start thinking about building the practice there, rather than what a lot of people do is they build a practice 5 minutes down the road in a super saturated area and then wonder why it costs them so much to run the clinic. Sometimes if you can't help that, if you're already set up in the clinic, or if you're buying a clinic that way, then it's still, we've got to do the opposite of what most people do, which is launch their market. We've got to get clients and then we can open. So I'm going to put a red through this so we know what not to do. Green, not to do. Blue, let's do. So second thing that people do then is they rely on word of mouth or referrals. And then they'll say, we're a referral-based practice, or we get a lot of word of mouth. Okay, say, awesome, that's great. Word of mouth and referrals are always going to be the best form of marketing. Tell me your strategy. They go, well, we hope that's not a strategy. Having a strategy is knowing when you're going to be asking for a referral, or when you're going to be asking for reviews and all these kinds of things as well. So it's actually systematized. Otherwise, if you just leave it up to chance, you could get way more and it's going to be really bitty. The second thing with relying on word of mouth or referrals is if you want to have a team, you can't grow it, because their word of mouth and referrals are not going to be as good as you. And people, to get to that point, if they've been referred to you, will want to come to you and typically not your team. Finally, on that point, word of mouth and referrals can be quite up and down. You may see this as well, that some weeks you're going to get a bunch of new people in because that was your first intake, and then after that Those people, you've got to get them through care, so you're going to go through a lull, and then you're going to go up again when those people who have just been referred in are getting better, they're seeing outcomes and stuff like that. So then we're going to get more people, and then we're going to go through a lull again. And that's just the way it goes for word of mouth and referrals. And that's just one thing which we've got to overcome. And typically, the reason why people rely on word of mouth and referrals is they're just masking that they don't know how to market their clinic. Ultimately, if you knew how to do different channels of marketing, people would do that as well, alongside word of mouth and referrals. It is the best way. I'm never going to take that away, but we need to supercharge it if you actually want to grow a clinic and get more consistency coming in. So then if we do the opposite of that, we're just going to set up more marketing channels to be able to get more people in through the door. So then we don't want to just be relying on word of mouth referrals. Typically people start doing this once they've opened their clinic as well. They're like, oh, I'm just going to get some friends in and hopefully get more people from that. But we just can see it's clear. We just need to get more marketing channels in before we've even opened the doors, if we can. Which then leads to point 3, which is people blame the whole rather than fixing the parts. And this can be what you may see in your clients as well. Let me explain. So let's say that you've opened the clinic, but then you've decided to market and you're relying on word of mouth. And that's fine. And then you decide to get more channels in, but because you've always previously relied on word of mouth and referrals, once you start looking at Google ads, Facebook ads, like leaflet drops, whatever other forms of marketing that we are putting in place, then the way in which someone comes in through those channels, they are very different client. The way in which we handle them is very different. And therefore, people have only ever been able to convert people from word of mouth and referrals. Therefore, when it comes to a Google ad or a Facebook ad, we've got to treat them slightly differently because we've got to educate them, warm them up a little bit more because that person doesn't have inherent trust in you like they do from a referral. Then people go, Facebook ads don't work for me and my clinic, or Google ads don't work for my clinic. But that's blaming the whole rather than looking at what parts. And often people are afraid to hold up the mirror and see maybe the initial consultation process is not very good. Maybe selling them into a care plan is not very good because they've always done very well just relying on word of mouth and referrals, and therefore get stuck in that cycle and say, Facebook ads just don't work for my clinic. There's like 10 million advertisers on Facebook. Just to think it doesn't work for your one clinic, that's a belief, that's not a data point. Because that Mark Zuckerberg's like 4th, 5th richest person in the world right now, primarily from like Facebook gets their revenue from these ads. Like it's doing well. Therefore, they blame the whole. Instead, what we need to do is find and fix the parts. So when I say fix the parts, what a lot of people do is they'll run Facebook ads once, they won't maybe get new clients from it straight away and say, Facebook ads don't work for me. But there's a lot that goes into a Facebook ad. And if you've never run a Facebook ad, for example, before, then we've got to write copy, we've got to create the content, create the image, the video, and there's a lot that even goes into that. There's a lot that goes into the headline. Then it's actually setting it up to make sure you've got it set up in the right format. And then there's a follow-up process, and then there's a conversion process from a lead into actually get them in for an initial consultation, and then convert them from that initial consultation into a follow-up appointment. There's a lot that goes into it. Even within an ad, we can look at the thumb stop, we can look at the link click-through rate, the clicks on all. There's a lot which we can actually break down, and therefore a lot of points which we can fix each part rather than just looking at it as a blanket statement saying Facebook ads don't work for me, yet thousands of clinics around the world still use them. Instead, we could just maybe fix the hook and make it that people actually stop and see your ad and then build trust in you. Therefore, then all of a sudden it unlocks everything else. Which actually leads me to point 4. Before I get onto that, if you actually want my help to just walk you through what all the parts are, give you the whole step-by-step process, go to the link in the description and I'll be able to help you out in our community. So with point 4, which is they believe they know it all. Typically, this is in people who have been in clinic for a long period of time or newbies coming in. So if you're a fresh graduate, the reason why I say they know it all is like what I was saying with blaming the parts, is that they look at the conversion of a Facebook ad and say, these people, they didn't convert. Doesn't work for my clinic. Out of all the thousands of clinics that this works for, it doesn't randomly work for my clinic. But that is just thinking that because you've always relied on these word of mouth and referrals, that everyone who comes into clinic is going to be coming through word of mouth and referrals in the same process, being that they've got trust, they know about your whole process, they've been referred in. Like, that's where Facebook ads, Google ads, people coming in from a screening, people coming in from anything else, they come through a very different platform. So the thing which we're going to do instead is adapt to think, cool, maybe I don't know how to convert people from Facebook ads because they are different to referrals or word of mouth. Therefore, I've got to learn to adapt. I've got to learn the whole conversion mechanism. This is why, for example, I make YouTube videos, because by you watching a YouTube video, you get to see me, you get to see my personality and stuff, and therefore you come in, if you ever want to join us, you're going to be in a much more trusted state in me, because hopefully I've shown that I know some bits about clinical marketing. That's the same process, that people don't have trust, and therefore the conversion mechanism is very different. For example, if I run an ad and have someone call me straight away. Then finally, this leads to point 5, where people just don't evolve because they get stuck in this cycle and think that, oh, because we've always had word of mouth referrals, that Facebook ads don't work for me, that we can't ever expand, we can't ever keep growing to learn how to make Facebook ads work or how to make Google ads work. Therefore, we're going to keep handing out flyers. Maybe I'll run an ad in the yellow pages, or maybe I'll just stick to word of mouth referrals, which then people just get stuck in this thing to say we're a referral only clinic. They can't ever expand. They get frustrated because they can't get team members on board, because the team members who they do get on board can't get referrals like them. So then they put them on as a contractor, because then they hope that they can build up their business, and then they move on and they're like, oh, associates are really frustrating. It ends up in this all never ending cycle. Whereas the clinic owners who are continue to grow, they actually grow with the times. They learn these different parts, and they learn to evolve and find out what is and isn't working and change their clinic to that. So they are growing with new trends that come about, whether it's posting more on social media, whether it's doing TikTok, whether it's running Google ads, whether it's using AI. They're the ones who are going to continue to grow because they're not still handing out leaflets in 2026. So all we've got to do is do the opposite of these 5 things, and then that way we can get ahead of 90% of clinic owners. Most clinics can solve a lot of their problems if they have a consistent flow of new clients coming in. So if you do those 5 steps, then that is what can help. So basically just doing the opposite of what most do, that is how you get ahead of 90% of clinic owners. If you want my help to actually implement any of this and just give you a plug and play system so you can get involved in doing it without thinking, and just follow a proven step that hundreds of clinic owners around the world are using, go to the link in the description and I'll be able to help out.